The galaxy had celebrated victory before it was earned. For centuries, the Council and its allied species had believed that the humans, once feared, were long gone. Extinct. Wiped out in the wars that had reshaped the outer sectors. The so-called Deathworlders had vanished, leaving behind only legends, whispers of impossible endurance, and warnings dismissed as stories meant to frighten children. Entire fleets were now being sent to conquer the remaining systems, their leaders confident that no resistance would remain. Alien commanders laughed openly, mocking the rumors of humans surviving on a harsh, abandoned world. They spoke of Deathworlders as myths, fairytales for nervous officers, as if humanity could not possibly endure the galaxy's dangers alone. The celebration on the flagship of the conquering fleet was loud, extravagant, and full of arrogance. Wine flowed in crystal containers, exotic foods from conquered planets were served in abundance, and every officer reveled in their sense of assured victory. The galaxy, they believed, belonged to them. And yet, while they feasted, a tiny anomaly flickered on the edge of their senses, a signal. It was raw, desperate, almost primitive, and impossible to trace. A blip of noise among billions of signals, and yet it pulsed with unmistakable intelligence. The aliens paused, looked at their instruments, frowned, and shrugged it off. "This is nothing," one officer said. "Just another ghost signal from the outer sectors. We have more important things to celebrate." But the signal pulsed again. This time, stronger, sharper, with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. Something ancient had awakened. It was not a distress call, not a simple request for help, it was a summons. And it came from a human world. The commander, an imposing figure with multiple eyes reflecting the fleet's lights, leaned forward, curiosity brushing against unease. "Humans," he muttered, a word that sounded foreign in his own throat. "Extinct, aren't they? Gone centuries ago. Nothing remains." The first officer shook his head. "All reports confirm it. Legends, nothing more. Our fleets will take the outer sectors easily. The Deathworlders are no threat." Yet the signal persisted. It grew stronger, repeating a sequence of pulses that no one could decode. Analysts studied it, attempting to trace its origin, and found it impossible to pinpoint. It came from deep within a planet known only as Terra 9, a world considered barren, hostile, and abandoned for generations. The scientists reported anomalies, energy readings far beyond any natural phenomenon, fluctuations in the magnetic field, and patterns in the pulse that defied any known technology. "It's intelligent," one whispered in awe, a tone mixed with fear. "It's deliberate. Someone is calling us. Someone is awake." The fleet commander scowled, dismissing their caution. "Impossible. No human has survived on a world like that. It is a death world. Nothing thrives there. The signal is a trick, a malfunction. Focus on the conquest. We leave in 12 hours. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Officers whispered among themselves, uneasy glances exchanged. Could the humans truly have survived? Could they have adapted to the harshest conditions known to the galaxy, learned, and evolved in secret for centuries? The very idea was uncomfortable, but impossible to ignore. The fleet left orbit, engines blazing, shields activated, weapons primed for conquest. Every vessel was a symbol of dominance, every soldier confident that no obstacle could halt them. And yet, the signal continued, pulsing at intervals, following them, mimicking patterns, almost as if it were alive. For the first time, the officers felt a tiny sting of fear, a feeling they had never expected when thinking of humans. As the fleet approached Terra 9, the planet came into view. At first glance, it seemed barren. Rocky plains stretched to jagged mountains, storms lashed the surface, and nothing appeared alive. The sensors picked up no life, no cities, no fleets, no defenses. The Council's arrogance surged again. "See," the commander said aloud, relief in his voice. "Nothing remains. Extinct, as we believed. The Deathworlders are gone. There is nothing to fear." Yet beneath the surface, hidden in deep caverns, underground cities carved from stone and steel, humanity waited. The Deathworlders were not extinct, they were silent, observing, and ready. Ancient bunkers, automated defenses, and hidden fleets lay in wait. Centuries of preparation had gone into this moment. The humans had anticipated the day alien fleets would return, and now it had come. Their patience had been absolute. Their discipline, unmatched. And they had studied the galaxy, every species, every fleet, every weapon, every weakness, for generations. The first anomaly occurred when scouts sent ahead of the main fleet disappeared without a trace. Their engines shut down mid-jump. Sensors malfunctioned. Communications went silent. No wreckage, no debris, just empty space where ships had been seconds ago. Panic flickered in the eyes of the alien officers. "It's a trap," one shouted. "Impossible. The systems are perfect." Yet humanity had not even appeared. They were still hidden, still silent, observing. The fleet commander cursed and ordered the main armada to advance, confident that whatever had disabled the scouts could be countered. But as the vessels moved deeper into orbit, strange anomalies grew stronger. Weapons fired but failed to reach targets. Engines burned fuel but produced no thrust. Shields fluctuated unpredictably. Every attempt to bring order to the fleet was thwarted by invisible hands. Humans had become legends for a reason. Every tactic, every strategy the aliens knew, had been anticipated, studied, and countered before the first shot was ever fired. The Deathworlders did not need fleets in orbit to strike, they needed patience, knowledge, and observation. And now, in the midst of alien arrogance, the galaxy would learn why humanity had survived. The SOS signal pulsed again, louder this time, almost as if calling to the alien fleet. It was not a warning. It was a challenge. Every officer could feel the weight of it, not through sensors, not through technology, but instinct. Something ancient, something intelligent, something deadly had awakened. And it was human. Panic began to spread among the alien fleet. Officers who had once laughed at the idea of surviving Deathworlders now whispered warnings. Systems began to fail in ways that engineers could not explain. Fleets became uncoordinated. Energy beams misfired. Hyperdrives stalled mid-jump. Not a single human had appeared above the planet, yet every officer knew instinctively that humanity was already in control. The commander stood on the bridge, scanning the holographic projection of Terra 9. His confidence faltered. "Impossible," he whispered. "No one survives there. No one." But the sensors pulsed again, faintly, impossibly. It was as if the planet itself were alive, watching, waiting, calculating. Humanity had made the planet a weapon, a fortress, and a trap. They had waited centuries for this moment, and now, every arrogant assumption the aliens had made was being destroyed. The fleet braced for engagement, for battle, for victory. They had no idea that the SOS they had ignored, laughed at, and dismissed was the first call to a fight they could not win. Humans had survived every trial, every challenge, every enemy. They were patient, intelligent, and utterly unstoppable. And the galaxy was about to see the Deathworlders return, not as myths, not as ghosts, but as masters of survival and war, ready to claim their place among the stars once more. The signal pulsed again, louder, deliberate, and terrifying. This was no longer a warning. This was the beginning of humanity's reckoning. The aliens, confident of victory moments ago, now felt a fear that no weapon, no fleet, no strategy could assuage. They had come to conquer an extinct species. Instead, they had awakened humanity, and in doing so, summoned the wrath of the most patient, most intelligent, and most deadly species in the galaxy. The SOS signal had not been ignored for long. Alien fleets, still flush with confidence, continued their advance toward Terra 9, believing the planet to be lifeless. Yet every step they took only drew them deeper into a trap they could not see. Ships that had once felt invincible now trembled as subtle anomalies began to ripple through their systems. Engines sputtered mid-jump, communication arrays distorted beyond recognition, and weapon targeting failed without explanation. Commanders cursed, screamed, and demanded answers, yet every technician admitted the impossible. Nothing had physically interfered. The humans were unseen, yet their presence was everywhere. Underground, in the hidden cities carved into the jagged rock of Terra 9, humans watched. The Deathworlders were not panicked. They did not celebrate, and they did not gloat. They observed, calculated, and waited. Every fleet movement had been anticipated centuries before. Every weapon, every shield, every contingency had been studied. Humans had endured the harshest conditions imaginable, adapted to survive impossible environments, and mastered strategies beyond anything the aliens could comprehend. The SOS was more than a call, it was a summons. It was a warning. It was a signal that the Deathworlders had returned and that the galaxy's arrogance had created its own undoing. The first human ships slipped into the void. They were smaller than alien warships but infinitely faster, more agile, and almost invisible to sensors. They did not attack openly. They moved like shadows, silent, precise, and deadly. When they struck, it was surgical. Alien scouts that had ventured too close vanished without trace. Engines exploded mid-boost. Weapon systems overloaded. Fleet formations, once perfect, became chaotic. The Deathworlders had turned patience into strategy, observation into weaponry, and fear into control. Alien commanders tried to respond. They called for volleys of missiles, concentrated energy beams, coordinated flanking maneuvers, but each attack failed in ways that made no sense. Missiles detonated prematurely. Energy beams split and deflected harmlessly. Fleets collided in confusion. The humans had predicted their every action and turned their pride into vulnerability. It was not brute force that had been unleashed, it was intelligence. The Deathworlders fought without appearing, commanded without speaking, and defeated without exposing themselves. Panic rippled through the alien fleet. Officers who had laughed at the idea of Deathworlders now trembled in fear. Fleets stalled. Systems malfunctioned. Even the most confident commanders whispered of something that defied logic. They are everywhere, one admitted quietly. And yet, nowhere. They see everything. The first reports of unmanned strikes and untraceable disruptions spread across every fleet. It became painfully clear, the humans had mastered the galaxy before the galaxy had even realized they existed. Meanwhile, humans activated planetary defenses. Automated turrets emerged from the mountains, energy shields hummed silently, and satellites aligned in patterns designed to trap and confuse. Every measure had been prepared long ago, every algorithm written centuries in advance. Civilians watched from hidden shelters, their nerves steady, their hearts calm. They had trained for this moment. They had prepared for centuries. Fear existed only in their enemies, not in them. As alien warships attempted to regroup, human pilots struck again. Small squadrons darted in and out of sensor ranges, disabling power grids, jamming communications, and targeting vital systems. No human life was lost, no unnecessary destruction occurred. The Deathworlders had learned restraint through centuries of survival, knowing the cost of unnecessary aggression. Yet their enemies were forced to watch their power fail repeatedly, powerless to respond. Every strike was a message, humanity had returned, and it had evolved beyond reckoning. The alien fleet tried to retreat. Commanders shouted orders, firing weapons at the fleeing humans. But the Deathworlders anticipated this as well. Fleets were herded into zones where engines malfunctioned, and weapons misfired. Ships collided in voids where no obstacle existed. Communication networks overloaded with signals that made no sense to alien minds. The humans had mastered space itself, using not only their ships and weapons but the very physics and systems the aliens relied upon. The galaxy had believed the Deathworlders extinct, but in truth they had been waiting, learning, preparing, and now the hunter had become unstoppable. Deep beneath Terra 9, strategists monitored the chaos above. They think they can flee, one whispered, voice calm, precise. They cannot. Every system, every formation, every signal has been anticipated. They are trapped by their own arrogance. The commanders nodded, understanding without needing words. Humanity had returned not as soldiers but as masters of survival, intelligence, and patience. They had waited centuries for the galaxy to underestimate them, and now the price for that miscalculation was being paid. Above the surface, the SOS signal pulsed again. Alien fleets shuddered as sensors struggled to interpret it. It was no longer a faint blip, it was a command. Every ship, every system, every operator felt the invisible pressure of intelligence far beyond their comprehension. The humans were silent, hidden, and yet absolute. They had prepared the galaxy for this moment, studied every species, every fleet, every weapon, and now every alien who had dared to assume humanity extinct was paying for their confidence. The Deathworlders did not strike recklessly. Their attacks were deliberate, surgical, and terrifying. Every disabled fleet, every sabotaged system, every crippled warship was proof that humanity had survived extinction not by luck, but by intelligence, endurance, and mastery. The aliens had thought victory certain, but with each passing moment, it became clear, they had awakened a force they could not defeat with numbers or technology alone. As the alien fleets faltered, the first human capital ships appeared in orbit. Massive, yet agile, these ships were designed for speed, endurance, and precision. They did not fire immediately. They observed. They calculated. They waited for the perfect moment. When the first volleys were launched, alien warships exploded in precise sequences, systems failing at exact points that suggested human foresight spanning centuries. Panic erupted among the alien crews. No one understood how humans had achieved such precision, how they could be everywhere and nowhere at once, how they had studied every conceivable scenario long before the fleets arrived. And then, the signal pulsed again, stronger than before. Not a warning. Not a plea. A command. Humanity was no longer answering. Humanity was initiating. The galaxy realized, even as alien fleets scrambled desperately, that the Deathworlders had returned, not merely as survivors, not merely as fighters, but as masters of war, intelligence, and strategy. The SOS had summoned them, but the consequence of answering it was more than the aliens could imagine. The humans had turned the call into a weapon, a trap, and a revelation that the galaxy was not ready to face. The fleet commander, standing frozen on the bridge, felt the weight of his failure. Every plan, every weapon, every strategy had failed before engagement had even begun. They are not extinct, he whispered. They were never gone. They were waiting for us. And at that moment, the truth became clear to everyone watching. The galaxy had believed the Deathworlders extinct, but in reality, humanity had been preparing, silent and patient, for centuries, ready to strike when the moment came. The SOS signal continued to pulse across space, a reminder of what had been underestimated, what had been forgotten, and what had now returned. Humanity was alive. Humanity was intelligent. Humanity was deliberate. And humanity was coming for every fleet, every station, every command that had dared assume they were gone. The galaxy had been warned. And now the Deathworlders were answering. The alien fleets believed they controlled the battle before it had even begun. Their weapons were charged, their shields up, their confidence unshakable. They had prepared for conquest, for victory, for the annihilation of what they assumed was an extinct species. But they had forgotten one thing: humans were never truly gone. Humans had endured the impossible, adapted to the harshest worlds, and mastered strategies that no alien mind could predict. And now, after centuries of silence, humanity chose its first strike. It began with small vessels, almost invisible, moving through the void like shadows. They struck silently, deliberately, and with perfect timing. A scout squadron in the outer rim, the pride of the Council's fleet, disappeared mid-jump. No alarms sounded. No debris floated in the void. One moment they existed, the next, they were gone. Alien commanders scrambled to respond, firing sensors, sending messages, attempting to locate the missing ships. Every attempt failed. Humans were everywhere and nowhere, their presence felt only in the failures they caused. The first human capital ship appeared, massive yet agile, a dark silhouette against the glare of distant stars. It moved slowly, deliberately, allowing alien scanners to lock onto it, yet every measurement was false. The ship projected decoys, manipulated readings, and controlled the battlefield without firing a single shot. Alien officers shouted, cursed, and panicked as their instruments betrayed them, and yet the humans remained calm, silent, and in control. Then came the coordinated strikes. Small vessels darted between warships, disabling weapons systems with electromagnetic pulses and precise sabotage drones. Engines faltered, shields flickered, and fleets that had once seemed invincible were suddenly vulnerable. Entire squadrons collided due to manipulated navigation arrays. Missiles detonated harmlessly in empty space, consumed by invisible countermeasures. The aliens fired blindly, unaware that their own weapons were being turned against them. The Deathworlders had transformed patience into a weapon, strategy into dominance, and observation into annihilation. In the command center of the alien flagship, officers screamed in confusion. Reports poured in, fleets immobilized, communication lines disrupted, weapons neutralized. Every plan they had prepared for centuries had been anticipated and countered. Panic spread like wildfire. Some commanders argued for retreat, others shouted for aggression, hoping brute force could salvage their pride. But nothing worked. Every movement had already been studied, every maneuver anticipated. The humans were not just defending, they were orchestrating the entire battlefield with invisible hands. The first explosions were almost artistic. Not chaotic, not random, but precise. A massive warship attempting to flank the human positions lost control mid-flight. Its engines burned unevenly, its weapons fired into empty space. Another squadron collided, their hulls tearing apart as invisible forces guided them together. The aliens could not understand the scale of intelligence at work. Humans were unseen, silent, and deadly. They struck without leaving a trace of their location, yet every action was fatal to their enemies. On Terra 9, the hidden cities remained silent. Commanders monitored the chaos above, their faces calm and resolute. Civilians assisted without fear. Engineers managed support systems, ensured shields remained intact, and monitored communications. The humans had trained for centuries to act as one organism. Every pilot, every engineer, every civilian contributed to the precise orchestration of this first strike. Fear existed only in the aliens. Discipline, unity, and calculation existed only in humanity. The alien fleet attempted to regroup. Missiles fired in massive volleys, energy beams lanced through space, and reinforcements were summoned. But humans anticipated each move. Fleets were funneled into zones where engines failed, weapons backfired, and shields fluctuated uncontrollably. Every council maneuver played into human hands. Systems that had been trusted for generations betrayed their operators. Humans had studied the galaxy in detail, prepared for every contingency, and now executed their plan with deadly perfection. From orbit to the outer rim, human ships appeared and disappeared like phantoms. No one knew how many there were. No one could trace their movements. Alien fleets could only react, and every reaction was anticipated. Warships that had once ruled the void drifted helplessly, their weapons inert. Panic became absolute. Officers who had mocked the Deathworlders now whispered stories of fear and awe. They spoke of humans who were everywhere and nowhere, who struck with intelligence rather than brute force, who could defeat entire fleets without exposing themselves. The first strike ended not with a final blow, but with a statement. Alien fleets were disabled, scattered, and demoralized. Their confidence shattered. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. The Deathworlders had not revealed themselves fully. They had struck silently, invisibly, and with precision that no one could comprehend. They had shown the universe that they were alive, that they were intelligent, and that they were patient beyond measure. Commanders in the alien fleet huddled together, fear evident in every movement. "They are not extinct," one muttered. "They have been waiting. They have been planning. And they are here." The truth was undeniable. Humans had returned, silent, deadly, and in control. The SOS signal that had appeared days ago was no longer just a signal, it had become a summons. And the galaxy had answered it. The hidden cities of Terra 9 continued to watch. Humans waited for the next wave, analyzing, adapting, and preparing. They had not revealed their full strength. The first strike had been a warning, a demonstration of patience, intelligence, and power. The aliens had thought victory certain. Now they understood that the humans they had underestimated were masters of strategy, masters of survival, and masters of war itself. Above the planet, sensors continued to pick up anomalies. Alien fleets struggled to maintain formation. Communications broke down. Weapons systems misfired. Engines stalled. Every attempt at control failed. Humanity's first strike was more than destruction, it was a lesson. And the lesson was clear: the galaxy had underestimated humans at its peril. The Deathworlders had returned, not to negotiate, not to beg, not to surrender. They had returned to show the galaxy that patience, intelligence, and preparation could overcome any force, that silence could be a weapon, and that no species should ever assume humans extinct. The first strike was only the beginning. And in the hearts of the alien commanders, for the first time, fear had replaced arrogance. After the first strike, the galaxy was silent. The alien fleets, once proud and confident, drifted in confusion, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. Officers barked orders that were ignored by their malfunctioning systems. Sensors failed, communications cracked, and weapons misfired as if some invisible hand controlled every movement. The Deathworlders did not need to reveal themselves fully, they were already everywhere and nowhere, their presence a shadow over every ship, every fleet, and every command station. The galaxy had believed them extinct, and now, in the void of space, their absence became a terrifying lie. Human observers, hidden deep beneath Terra 9, monitored the chaos above. In massive underground command centers, lights glowed softly, screens displayed every fleet movement, and humans whispered coordinates, adjustments, and instructions to each other. Civilians and soldiers alike worked together seamlessly. Engineers adjusted satellite positions. Pilots prepared for invisible maneuvers. Analysts recalculated trajectories in real time. Humanity had waited centuries for this moment, and every calculation, every prediction, every adjustment was executed perfectly. Fear did not exist here. Only patience, discipline, and purpose. Alien commanders struggled to maintain order. Warships collided in the void as navigation arrays failed. Communications attempted to synchronize but fell into static. Energy shields fluctuated unpredictably, leaving vessels vulnerable to attacks they could not see coming. Officers stared at the chaos, their confidence replaced with panic. For the first time, they realized that this was not war in the traditional sense. This was something far more intelligent, far more patient, far more dangerous. Humans were not simply fighting, they were orchestrating, controlling, and dominating the battlefield without ever appearing. In the void, small human vessels moved like shadows. They were almost impossible to detect, their technology masking every heat signature, every energy output. They struck silently, disabling engines, jamming communications, and redirecting energy flows without a single shot being fired. Entire alien fleets became trapped in zones designed to manipulate their own systems. Ships drifted helplessly, weapons misfired, and command centers struggled to regain control. The Deathworlders had turned intelligence into a weapon, patience into power, and observation into absolute dominance. On Terra 9, the hidden humans did not gloat. They did not shout in victory. They watched, measured, and adjusted. Every movement of the alien fleets was anticipated. Every failed maneuver was analyzed and used to prepare for the next strike. They did not need to fire all their weapons at once. They did not need to reveal the full power of the Deathworlders' fleet. Every misstep by the aliens, every faltering engine, every misfired weapon, was proof that humanity's patience, intelligence, and preparation were more deadly than any brute force the galaxy could muster. The alien fleets attempted to retreat, but the Deathworlders anticipated this as well. Zones of manipulated space-trapped ships in place. Engines overheated, weapons overloaded, and navigation systems failed without warning. Fleets collided as if drawn together by some unseen force. Commanders shouted at their crews, blaming engineers, systems, or miscalculations, but nothing could explain what was happening. The humans were unseen, yet they controlled the battlefield with absolute precision. The galaxy had thought humans extinct, but now every officer knew they were alive, intelligent, and unstoppable. Reports from the field spread fear. "Our ships cannot move," one officer admitted. "Our weapons will not fire. Something is controlling everything." Another whispered, trembling. "It is as if the universe itself obeys them." Panic became chaos. The Council's pride, their arrogance, their confidence, all dissolved in the face of an enemy that no one could see, no one could anticipate, and no one could defeat with traditional tactics. Even those who had survived countless wars felt unease. Fleet veterans whispered of legends, of Deathworlders who could survive the harshest worlds, who could endure conditions no other species could tolerate. They had thought the stories were exaggerated. Now, facing invisible enemies who disabled fleets without ever showing themselves, they realized the truth. Humanity had not merely survived, they had mastered the art of patience, observation, and warfare itself. Every alien strategy they had encountered had been anticipated, every weakness studied, every move countered centuries before. Above the chaos, human capital ships remained unseen but perfectly positioned. Their engines emitted no detectable heat. Their weapons remained silent, yet they controlled the flow of the battle like conductors of an orchestra. Alien fleets found themselves trapped in corridors of space that did not exist, unable to maneuver, their pride crumbling. Every decision the aliens made, every maneuver, was predicted and countered. Humanity had created a battlefield where only they could move freely, and where every step the enemy took led them closer to their own failure. The SOS signal continued to pulse across space, no longer just a call, but a warning, a challenge, and a command. Alien fleets scrambled desperately, yet every effort failed. The Deathworlders had prepared for centuries, learned every weakness of every species, and now executed their strategy with perfect timing. Ships that had once ruled entire sectors were immobilized. Communication networks collapsed. Fleets drifted helplessly, their crews watching in terror as invisible enemies manipulated every system, every weapon, every maneuver. In the shadows of space, humans watched silently, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike further. They did not rush. They did not attack recklessly. Every move was deliberate. Every strike would be precise. The galaxy had believed them extinct, but in truth, humans had been waiting for this moment, training, preparing, and studying their enemies for centuries. And now, the galaxy was learning a truth it had forgotten long ago. Humans were patient, intelligent, and utterly unstoppable. Alien officers who had mocked the Deathworlders now whispered stories of fear. They described humans who could be everywhere at once, yet unseen. They described attacks that disabled entire fleets without a single shot landing. They described a species that had turned patience into power, silence into a weapon, and intelligence into a force more deadly than any fleet or weapon. The galaxy realized, with a shiver, that humanity had returned, not as myths, not as ghosts, but as masters of war, masters of survival, and masters of strategy itself. The first true chaos had begun, but the Deathworlders had yet to reveal their full strength. They struck with restraint, intelligence, and precision, teaching the galaxy that underestimating humanity was the deadliest mistake it could ever make. And in every shadow, in every unseen corner of space, humanity waited, silent, deliberate, and unbroken, ready for the next wave, ready to reclaim the stars. The galaxy had believed humans extinct. It was about to learn that extinction had never been an option, that patience was a weapon, and that the Deathworlders had returned to remind every species of a truth that would echo across the stars forever: never underestimate humans. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as alien fleets struggled to maintain control. Ships that had once been the pride of entire civilizations now floated helplessly, their engines failing, their weapons useless, their command networks in chaos. Officers screamed orders, but their voices were drowned in static and confusion. The Deathworlders had not even revealed themselves fully, yet the impact of their presence was absolute. Every alien commander began to understand, with growing terror, that they were facing a force that was far beyond anything they had prepared for, far beyond anything they had imagined. Below the surface of Terra 9, in cities hidden deep beneath the planet's jagged mountains, humans observed the chaos with calm precision. Their command centers hummed softly with controlled energy. Every screen, every console, every operator was part of a vast organism of coordination. Civilians assisted engineers. Pilots coordinated with satellites. Analysts calculated every possible scenario and updated strategies in real time. Humans did not panic. Humans did not act recklessly. Humanity had waited centuries for this moment, and now, every calculation was being executed flawlessly. The first strike had been a warning. The second strike was a lesson. Small human vessels moved with impossible speed, invisible to alien sensors, striking systems without being seen. Engines were disabled mid-flight. Weapons overloaded and turned against their operators. Navigation systems betrayed entire fleets. Every alien action played into the humans' hands. The galaxy had believed humans were extinct, weak, or primitive. It had underestimated the patience, intelligence, and adaptability of the Deathworlders. Now it was learning, painfully, that every assumption had been wrong. The alien fleets tried to regroup, attempting to restore order. Massive warships fired volleys of missiles and energy beams, hoping brute force could salvage their pride. Yet each attempt failed. Missiles detonated harmlessly in space. Energy beams split and dissipated. Fleets collided with each other in confusion. Every strike humans anticipated. Every movement humans calculated. Humanity had learned the galaxy's languages, its strategies, its weapons, and its weaknesses. They did not need to reveal themselves to dominate. The galaxy had forgotten the first lesson: intelligence can be deadlier than raw power. In hidden underground chambers, human commanders observed, noting which systems the aliens relied upon most. They trust their technology too much, one whispered. Every weapon, every engine, every shield is part of their arrogance. We only need to redirect their confidence against them. Engineers nodded, adjusting satellite positions, deploying decoy fleets, and ensuring communications remained secure. Humans had not only survived extinction, they had learned to master every variable, turning every alien advantage into a liability. Reports flowed from the outer rim. Entire squadrons that had advanced too far were trapped in zones where engines refused to operate. Warships turned on each other due to manipulated guidance systems. Communication networks collapsed across fleets. Panic and fear replaced confidence in seconds. The galaxy began to whisper a terrifying truth. Humans were no longer weak, no longer silent, and no longer hidden. Humans were teaching lessons, silent and deliberate, that no alien had ever imagined. Even the most seasoned alien veterans began to tremble. They had faced countless enemies before. They had survived wars that had destroyed entire star systems. Yet nothing prepared them for this. They spoke quietly among themselves, voices tight with fear. They are controlling everything, one admitted. Every weapon, every ship, every system. They anticipate us, always. Another whispered, voice shaking. And they are invisible. The terror was absolute. The galaxy had never encountered a species that could dominate without revealing itself, that could control entire fleets with patience and intelligence alone. Humans did not strike blindly. Every maneuver was calculated, every disabled fleet a demonstration. Civilians and soldiers worked in perfect harmony. Pilots executed invisible maneuvers. Satellites deployed with precision. Weapon systems remained silent until their use would create maximum effect. Humanity had transformed patience into a weapon, observation into strategy, and intelligence into absolute power. Every alien fleet learned that victory could not be achieved through brute force alone. Every misstep was a silent lesson delivered by the Deathworlders, teaching arrogance its cost. The SOS signal, the call that had gone ignored, pulsed again. It was no longer a plea, it was a command, a summons, and a test. The aliens had answered it, but they had answered it incorrectly. Humanity had expected their response, had planned for it, and had turned it into a teaching tool. Every failure, every miscalculation, every moment of panic in the alien fleets became a lesson carefully orchestrated by humans. And the galaxy watched, helpless, as the invisible instructors demonstrated the limits of alien technology, strategy, and arrogance. Even the Council, observing from their distant command chambers, began to comprehend the scale of what they faced. Their confidence was gone. Their pride shattered. They had assumed humans extinct. They had assumed weakness. And now, they saw that extinction had never been an option, that weakness had never existed, and that patience, intelligence, and discipline could make humans the most lethal force the galaxy had ever encountered. Above Terra 9, human vessels continued their silent maneuvers, unseen but omnipresent. Alien ships tried to fire, tried to strike, tried to recover. But every action was anticipated, every strategy countered, every move reversed. Humans were teaching without revealing themselves, controlling without appearing, dominating without boasting. Every alien commander, every officer, every pilot learned their lesson in real time. Never underestimate humanity. And still, the humans waited. They had not revealed their full strength. They had not unleashed their capital ships. They had not declared the full extent of their capabilities. The first strike and the subsequent manipulations were only the beginning. The lesson had been delivered. The galaxy had learned that arrogance, assumption, and ignorance were deadly mistakes. The Deathworlders had returned, not only to survive, but to teach the universe a truth it could no longer deny. Humanity was intelligent, patient, and unstoppable. The alien fleets, scattered and terrified, now faced a choice: retreat and live with the knowledge of what they had ignored, or continue and face consequences they could not comprehend. Every hesitation, every error, every misjudgment reinforced the silent lesson humans had delivered. Survival required patience, intelligence, and respect. The galaxy had been humbled. The Deathworlders had risen, and their first lessons were clear, unyielding, and unforgettable. The shadows of space had shifted. Humanity's presence was everywhere, yet invisible. Their intelligence dominated fleets without being seen. Their patience controlled the battlefield without striking openly. The first strikes had been warnings, but the lessons had just begun. Every fleet, every commander, every system would remember this day. Every alien who had doubted humans would understand the cost of arrogance. And humanity, silent, deliberate, and unbroken, waited for the next moment to remind the galaxy of its mistake. The galaxy had believed the Deathworlders extinct. It had been wrong. Humanity had returned. And the lessons, silent and deadly, had only begun. The alien fleets had believed themselves unstoppable. They had assumed numbers, technology, and centuries of dominance would be enough to crush any threat. Yet the Deathworlders had shattered every expectation. Fleets that once projected absolute power now drifted helplessly through the void. Weapons systems misfired, engines faltered, and communication networks collapsed into chaos. Every attempt at control failed. Panic had replaced confidence, confusion had replaced order, and the galaxy was learning a truth it had long ignored. Humans were not merely survivors, they were masters of strategy, intelligence, and patience. From deep beneath the surface of Terra 9, humans observed every movement, every misstep, every failure of the alien fleets. Commanders coordinated silently with pilots in orbit, engineers adjusting satellites and orbital defenses, civilians monitoring vital support systems. Every action in the void was tracked, calculated, and counted in real time. The Deathworlders were patient. They were deliberate. They did not strike recklessly. Every maneuver, every disabled fleet, every neutralized weapon was a demonstration of precision and mastery. Humanity had waited centuries for this moment, and now, the galaxy would witness the cost of underestimating them. The first coordinated counterattacks by the aliens were a disaster. Massive fleets attempted to regain control, firing volleys of missiles and concentrated energy beams. But the humans anticipated every move. Weapons detonated prematurely. Energy beams split and dispersed harmlessly. Fleets collided with each other under invisible pressure, guidance systems failing at critical moments. Every calculated strike was turned against the attackers. The Deathworlders had transformed patience into a weapon, intelligence into dominance, and strategy into absolute power. No ship could move without risking immediate failure. No fleet could operate without human calculation already guiding its fate. Above the planet, human vessels glided through space like ghosts. They were invisible to alien sensors, but their influence was undeniable. They struck where necessary, disabled key systems, and corrected the course of the battle before the enemy even knew they were under attack. Ships that had believed themselves invincible drifted helplessly, their engines frozen, their weapons inert, their crews paralyzed with fear. Humanity's mastery of the void was absolute. Every failure the aliens experienced was proof that the Deathworlders had turned observation, patience, and intelligence into weapons far more deadly than any fleet or weapon system. Alien commanders struggled to maintain order. Officers who had once laughed at the idea of humans surviving on a harsh, abandoned world now whispered stories of terror. They are everywhere, one admitted quietly, eyes wide with fear. And yet, nowhere. They see everything. They control everything. They have anticipated everything. Panic rippled through every level of command. Fleets fractured. Soldiers argued. Warships collided. No tactic worked. Every move the aliens attempted had already been foreseen, every weapon neutralized before it could strike, every formation broken before it could complete its course. The Deathworlders' countermeasures were subtle, invisible, and devastating. Mines hidden in asteroid belts disabled entire squadrons. Automated defenses struck with precision before the enemy could react. Navigation systems manipulated by unseen algorithms forced warships into deadly zones. Communications were intercepted, scrambled, and returned as false orders. Every advantage the aliens had relied upon had been turned against them, and they had no idea who, or what, was orchestrating it. Deep in the hidden command chambers, human strategists watched with calm resolve. Civilians monitored supply lines, engineers adjusted orbital satellites, pilots coordinated invisible maneuvers. Humans did not celebrate. They did not panic. They were precise, disciplined, and unified. The tide of the battle was turning, but it was not brute force that achieved it, it was intelligence, patience, and preparation. The Deathworlders had learned the galaxy's weaknesses. They had studied every species, every fleet, every weapon, and now they were executing their strategy with deadly perfection. Alien fleets attempted retreat, but the humans anticipated it. Traps awaited in the void. Engines failed mid-jump. Guidance systems led ships into zones where collisions were inevitable. Weapons turned against their operators. Every maneuver the aliens tried to regain control only made them more vulnerable. The first strikes had been warnings. The second wave of coordinated attacks was the demonstration of dominance. The Deathworlders had turned the battlefield into a chessboard, and every alien was a piece being moved, manipulated, and ultimately neutralized. The Council watched from distant chambers. Confidence had been replaced by disbelief, disbelief by fear. The galaxy's greatest fleets were scattered, systems paralyzed, and command structures in chaos. Humanity, once believed extinct, had returned, not to negotiate, not to beg, not to plead, but to reclaim the stars. Every victory, every defeat of alien confidence, every immobilized warship was a reminder: intelligence, patience, and discipline could overcome any force. From orbit, humans activated the next phase of their strategy. Capital ships emerged, massive yet agile, perfectly positioned, invisible until the right moment. They struck with precision, disabling command ships, intercepting reinforcements, and neutralizing the remaining organized resistance. Fleets that had once laughed at the Deathworlders now drifted helplessly, their crews paralyzed by the realization that they were facing an enemy far beyond comprehension. Humanity had turned patience into an instrument of war, and intelligence into absolute power. The tide had turned. What had begun as defense became offense. Alien confidence evaporated. Pride shattered. Fear rippled through every sector. Every fleet, every station, every officer knew that humans had not only survived, they had dominated, orchestrated, and controlled an entire battle without exposing their full strength. The Deathworlders had risen from the shadows, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson they delivered: underestimate humanity at your peril. And still, the humans waited. Every move was deliberate. Every strike calculated. No unnecessary risk. No reckless aggression. The tide had turned, but the war was far from over. The galaxy now understood that patience, intelligence, and preparation were more deadly than fleets, weapons, or numbers. The humans had returned, and the universe was only beginning to comprehend the scale of what it had unleashed. The alien fleets drifted helplessly in space, their pride destroyed, their confidence gone. The Deathworlders had turned the tide without exposing themselves, without striking recklessly, and without revealing their full strength. The galaxy had been humbled. The lesson was clear: humans were not extinct. Humans were not weak. And humans were masters of war, intelligence, and survival in a universe that had long forgotten to fear them. The tide had turned. Humanity had begun to reclaim the stars. The galaxy trembled. Alien fleets, once brimming with pride, now drifted like broken shadows through the void. Every command was met with failure. Engines stuttered, weapons misfired, shields collapsed. Officers shouted, argued, and panicked, but their orders reached nowhere. Every attempt to regain control was anticipated, every strategy countered. Fear had replaced arrogance. Confidence had turned into chaos. Every alien knew, instinctively, that they were no longer in command. Humanity had returned. Humanity had learned. Humanity had turned silence into a weapon, patience into an instrument of war, and intelligence into absolute power. From beneath the surface of Terra 9, humans watched the spreading panic with calm precision. Every fleet, every maneuver, every misstep of the aliens was noted, analyzed, and used to prepare for the next move. Pilots executed invisible maneuvers across the void. Engineers adjusted orbital defenses. Civilians monitored communications and supply lines. Every human was part of a single organism, working together flawlessly. The Deathworlders had waited centuries for this moment, trained for it, and now every calculation was coming true. Humanity had mastered the galaxy before it even realized humans still existed. Alien commanders tried to regroup. Fleets fired volleys of missiles, beams of concentrated energy, and electronic countermeasures. Every strike failed. Missiles exploded harmlessly in empty space. Energy beams dissipated before reaching their target. Fleets collided as navigation systems were subtly manipulated by unseen human technology. Every weapon they trusted was turned against them. Every maneuver they thought would bring victory led them deeper into chaos. Fear rippled through the ranks. Officers whispered of legends, of Deathworlders who could survive impossible worlds, who could endure extinction, who could anticipate every threat. The stories had been true. Humans were not gone. They had been preparing. From orbit, human ships moved like shadows. Small, invisible, and deadly, they struck precisely where needed, disabling weapons, jamming communications, and redirecting energy flows. No human vessel revealed itself unnecessarily. Every action had purpose. Every strike was deliberate. Alien fleets that had once projected dominance were now scattered, immobilized, and terrified. Humanity had mastered patience, intelligence, and precision. The galaxy had believed in extinction. The Deathworlders were proving that extinction had never been possible. Panic spread beyond the battlefield. News of fleets disabled without explanation reached distant systems. Civilians, traders, and minor colonies whispered rumors of humans who could strike invisibly, control fleets without appearing, and destroy entire warships with intelligence rather than brute force. The fear was contagious. Entire species began to question their assumptions. Humans are not extinct, some admitted, voice trembling. They are patient. They are intelligent. They are unstoppable. Every word spread like wildfire, weakening the confidence of fleets that had not yet faced humans directly. Even the Council felt the tremors of fear. Their chambers, once filled with confident discussion and strategy, now echoed with whispers and doubt. Advisors who had mocked the Deathworlders now urged caution. Spreadsheets of fleet deployments, weapon inventories, and tactical simulations were examined repeatedly. Analysts admitted failures they could not explain. Every calculation that had assumed human extinction now seemed worthless. Humanity had returned, not as myths, not as legends, but as undeniable masters of war and strategy. The SOS signal, the call that had once gone ignored, pulsed again across the void. It was no longer just a warning, it was a summons. Every alien fleet that attempted to respond felt the invisible pressure of human intelligence guiding the battlefield. Weapons misfired. Shields collapsed. Engines faltered. No ship could operate without human influence subtly steering it toward failure. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and every miscalculation was now punished. Fear spread like a virus, infecting every commander, every officer, every pilot. Above the chaos, human capital ships moved into position, still unseen, still precise. Their presence was felt in the failure of the enemy, in the breakdown of fleets, in the hesitation and panic of every alien mind. The Deathworlders did not need to strike openly to dominate. They had turned patience, intelligence, and strategy into weapons more deadly than any missile or energy beam. The first strikes had been warnings. The manipulation of the fleets was a lesson. The full strength of humanity had yet to reveal itself. Yet fear had already spread. The alien fleets attempted desperate maneuvers. Some tried retreat. Others attempted concentrated volleys against perceived human positions. Every attempt failed. Fleets drifted helplessly. Command networks collapsed. Energy grids overloaded. Weapons misfired. Ships collided. Panic rippled through every level of command. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy realized that intelligence could be deadlier than numbers, that patience could be more powerful than weapons, and that humans could dominate without ever revealing themselves. From Terra 9, human strategists noted every reaction. Every mistake the aliens made became an opportunity for the next move. Every panic-stricken decision reinforced human control over the battlefield. Pilots executed maneuvers invisible to sensors. Engineers adjusted satellites and orbital defenses. Civilians monitored every support system. The Deathworlders were united, deliberate, and precise. Fear existed only in the enemy. Humanity's power was silent but absolute. The lessons continued to spread beyond the battlefield. Colonies, outposts, and minor fleets witnessed the failures of the aliens. Rumors of invisible humans who could control fleets without appearing terrified populations. Traders abandoned routes. Minor species reconsidered allegiances. Every corner of the galaxy learned that humans were alive, intelligent, and returning with purpose. The fear was not just tactical, it was existential. Every species understood that arrogance, ignorance, and assumption could no longer ensure survival. Even in the alien flagship, the commander trembled. Confidence, pride, and arrogance had evaporated. "They are everywhere," he whispered. "And yet, nowhere. We cannot fight them. We cannot see them. We cannot predict them. They are humans." Every word carried terror. For centuries, the galaxy had assumed humans extinct. That assumption had been shattered. Fear had spread faster than any fleet could move. The Deathworlders had returned, not to negotiate, not to bargain, but to remind the galaxy of a truth it had forgotten. Humanity was patient, intelligent, and unstoppable. And still, the humans waited. They did not rush. They did not act recklessly. They allowed fear to spread, knowing that every hesitation, every panic, every misstep by the enemy strengthened their control. The galaxy had believed the Deathworlders extinct. It had been wrong. Humanity had returned. Fear had spread, and the first true lessons were only the beginning. The universe would never again underestimate humans. The galaxy began to realize that it had never truly understood humans. The Deathworlders had returned not as brash conquerors or reckless warriors, but as silent, precise, and calculating masters of strategy. Every fleet, every command, every weapon had been anticipated, studied, and countered centuries before. Alien commanders now trembled at the thought that their arrogance had led them into a trap they could not see. Ships that once carried pride and confidence now floated helplessly, engines failing, shields flickering, systems corrupted. Every attempt to act decisively was neutralized before it could succeed. Humans were hidden, yet their control over the battlefield was absolute. Deep within Terra 9, the underground command centers hummed with quiet efficiency. Humans did not shout, did not panic, and did not act recklessly. Pilots coordinated invisible movements through space, engineers adjusted satellites and orbital defenses, civilians monitored vital systems, and analysts recalculated enemy maneuvers in real time. Every individual was part of a single, unified organism, acting with discipline and precision. The humans were not merely fighting, they were teaching, testing, and demonstrating the cost of underestimating a species that had endured extinction and emerged stronger. The alien fleets struggled to comprehend what was happening. Communications broke down, weapons misfired, and navigation arrays betrayed entire squadrons. Commanders who had once laughed at the stories of Deathworlders whispered fears they could barely articulate. "They are controlling everything," one admitted quietly. "Every ship, every fleet, every system. They anticipate every move we make. They are everywhere, and yet nowhere at once." Panic spread like wildfire. Fleets lost cohesion. Warships collided in the void. Entire crews became paralyzed with fear. Humans were unseen, yet their influence stretched across every sector. Above Terra 9, human capital ships moved through space like ghosts. Massive yet agile, they revealed only what was necessary, striking with precision that left alien fleets powerless. Missiles exploded harmlessly. Energy beams dissipated before reaching their targets. Navigation systems failed at critical moments, forcing ships into collision courses. Fleets that had once projected absolute dominance were scattered, immobilized, and terrified. Every move the aliens made had been anticipated, and every mistake was exploited without hesitation. Humanity had mastered patience, intelligence, and control. The SOS signal pulsed again, a reminder that humans were no longer responding, they were initiating. Every alien fleet that tried to act felt the invisible hand of intelligence guiding the battlefield. Weapons misfired, shields failed, engines faltered. Every maneuver the aliens attempted only tightened the invisible grip of the Deathworlders. The galaxy had assumed humans extinct. That assumption had been destroyed. The hidden masters had awakened. In the alien flagship, officers struggled to maintain composure. They had prepared for battle, for victory, for triumph over species they thought long gone. Yet every plan failed. Every maneuver was countered. Every weapon neutralized. Confidence crumbled, replaced by disbelief and terror. They whispered legends of the Deathworlders, of humans who could endure impossible worlds, adapt to impossible conditions, and anticipate threats centuries in advance. Now, facing these hidden masters, the galaxy realized the truth of those legends. Humanity had not been conquered. Humanity had survived, hidden, and patient, waiting for the perfect moment to reclaim the stars. The hidden humans coordinated every action with silent precision. Small vessels moved like shadows, striking at critical points. Satellites adjusted positions to manipulate energy flows. Orbital defenses controlled the battlefield without ever being seen. Engineers monitored every system, ensuring that the Deathworlder's influence extended across space. Civilians assisted seamlessly, their focus unwavering. The galaxy had believed that humans were extinct, weak, or primitive. The reality was terrifying. Humans were intelligent, disciplined, and unstoppable, masters of war without revealing themselves. Alien fleets tried desperate maneuvers. Some attempted retreat. Others fired volleys of energy beams, hoping brute force could salvage their pride. Every attempt failed. Missiles exploded harmlessly. Weapons misfired. Engines stalled. Communication networks collapsed. Fleets collided as guidance systems betrayed them. The Hidden Masters had turned the battlefield into a chessboard, and every alien was a pawn being manipulated without knowing it. Panic spread like wildfire. Fear became contagious. The galaxy's arrogance was being punished. Even the Council trembled. Advisors who had dismissed humans as extinct now urged caution and re-evaluation. Every tactical calculation based on the assumption of human weakness was invalid. Every fleet deployment had been anticipated and exploited. Humanity had returned to the galaxy not as conquerors in the traditional sense, but as orchestrators, controlling the flow of battle from hidden positions, unseen but absolute in influence. Fear spread faster than fleets could move. Every alien knew the cost of underestimating humans. The hidden Deathworlders continued their deliberate strategy. They did not rush. They did not strike recklessly. Every fleet immobilized, every weapon neutralized, every panic-stricken officer became part of a larger lesson. Humanity was teaching the galaxy patience, intelligence, and respect. They were demonstrating that survival required more than numbers, more than technology, more than arrogance. Humanity had returned to reclaim the stars not through destruction alone, but through mastery, silence, and precision. Above the chaos, human vessels remained unseen but omnipresent. Alien warships drifted helplessly, crews paralyzed with fear, engines failing, systems collapsing. Every move the aliens attempted played into human hands. Every misstep reinforced the lesson: underestimate humanity at your peril. The Deathworlders had turned observation into strategy, patience into power, and silence into absolute dominance. The galaxy had believed humans extinct. That belief had been shattered. And still, the humans waited. They did not reveal their full strength. They did not strike recklessly. They allowed fear to spread, knowing that every hesitation, every miscalculation, every panic-stricken officer strengthened their control. Humanity had returned, hidden, precise, and unbroken. The universe would never again underestimate humans. Every fleet, every species, every officer would remember this day. The Hidden Masters had reclaimed the galaxy, silently, deliberately, and absolutely. The galaxy had been warned. Fear had spread. And humanity, patient and precise, had begun to teach the universe the cost of arrogance. Alien commanders had begun to realize, too late, that this war was not like any they had fought before. Every maneuver they executed, every fleet formation they attempted, every weapon they unleashed was countered before it even reached its target. Ships that had once dominated entire star systems drifted helplessly, immobilized by invisible hands, their crews paralyzed with fear. Every misstep the aliens made was exploited with flawless accuracy. Humans did not need to reveal themselves fully. Their control of the battlefield was absolute. The Deathworlders had transformed precision into a weapon more deadly than any missile, more lethal than any energy beam, more unstoppable than the largest fleet. From beneath Terra 9, in vast underground chambers, humans observed every detail. Screens flickered with the positions of alien ships. Pilots adjusted their courses with subtle maneuvers invisible to enemy sensors. Engineers manipulated orbital systems to interfere with alien navigation. Analysts recalculated every trajectory, anticipating enemy reactions in seconds before the aliens themselves could act. Civilians monitored supply lines, ensured communications remained intact, and prepared for any contingencies. Humanity was not chaotic. Humanity was disciplined. Humanity was flawless. Every move was deliberate, every strike calculated, every failure of the enemy turned into an opportunity for absolute control. The alien fleets, once confident, now drifted in confusion. Officers shouted orders, but their words found no ears, their commands met only failure. Engines failed mid-jump. Weapons misfired. Shields fluctuated uncontrollably. Communication networks broke. Fleets collided with each other under subtle human influence. Panic spread through every level of command. Pride dissolved. Confidence evaporated. Fear, raw and absolute, consumed the officers, the crews, and the fleets themselves. Every alien knew, without knowing how, that they were facing a force beyond comprehension. Humans were unseen, yet they controlled the battlefield completely. Small human vessels moved through the void like shadows. They struck precisely, silently, and invisibly. Enemy weapons exploded harmlessly. Energy beams dissipated mid-course. Engines faltered, forcing warships into collision courses. Entire squadrons were neutralized without the humans ever appearing. Every failed attack, every miscalculated maneuver, every moment of panic reinforced a lesson the galaxy had long ignored: never underestimate humanity. The Deathworlders had waited centuries to teach the universe this truth, and now, every alien commander was learning it in the most terrifying way possible. In the alien flagship, panic became hysteria. Officers argued, shouted, and blamed each other for failures they could not explain. Fleets that had been symbols of pride now drifted like broken toys, their weapons useless, their engines failing, their crews paralyzed with fear. "It is as if everything obeys them," one muttered. "Every system, every ship, every strategy, they anticipate it all." Another whispered, voice trembling, "They are everywhere, and yet nowhere. They cannot be fought. They cannot be traced. They are humans." Terror had replaced arrogance. The galaxy had assumed humans extinct. That assumption had been destroyed. The Deathworlders had returned to reclaim the stars, and their mastery of precision was absolute. Above Terra 9, human capital ships remained unseen but perfectly positioned. Massive, agile, and silent, they struck only when necessary, disabling key systems, intercepting reinforcements, and neutralizing the remaining pockets of organized resistance. Alien fleets attempted to fight back, but every move was anticipated, every tactic countered, every weapon turned against them. Humanity had mastered intelligence, patience, and precision. Every failure the enemy experienced strengthened human control. The battlefield had become a chessboard, and every alien was a pawn moved by invisible hands. Even the distant council, watching from their command chambers, felt the weight of human dominance. Every fleet they had counted on to maintain order now drifted helplessly. Every plan based on assumptions of human weakness was rendered useless. Humanity had returned, not to plead, not to negotiate, but to dominate, orchestrate, and control the battlefield with an intelligence that no species had ever faced. Fear spread faster than fleets could move. Every species in the galaxy realized the cost of arrogance. The SOS signal, long ignored, pulsed across the void once more. It was not a plea. It was a summons, a command, and a demonstration. Every alien fleet that attempted to respond experienced the crushing precision of human calculation. Engines failed, weapons misfired, shields faltered, and communications were neutralized. Every step, every reaction, every panic-stricken decision played into human hands. The Deathworlders had waited centuries for this moment, and now every calculation, every strategy, every misstep of the enemy was exploited flawlessly. And still, humans did not reveal their full strength. They did not strike recklessly. Every movement was deliberate, every strike calculated, every success silent yet absolute. The first strikes had been warnings. The lessons had been delivered. Now, the crushing precision of humanity demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and discipline could dominate the galaxy more completely than fleets, weapons, or numbers ever could. Every alien commander, officer, and pilot learned a terrifying truth: underestimate humanity, and extinction could follow, not immediately, but inevitably. The tide of battle had turned. Alien fleets, scattered and immobilized, faced humiliation and fear beyond anything they had imagined. The Deathworlders had returned to reclaim the stars, not as myths or legends, but as masters of war, unseen yet unstoppable. Every corner of the galaxy, every system, every officer would remember this day. Humanity had taught the ultimate lesson: precision, patience, and intelligence could crush the arrogance of the universe itself. And in the hidden cities of Terra 9, humans watched silently. They had won battles without revealing themselves. They had dominated the battlefield without exposing their full strength. The crushing precision of humanity was now absolute. The galaxy had believed humans extinct. It had been wrong. The Deathworlders had returned, and the universe would never forget the power of their patience, intelligence, and relentless precision. The galaxy had never known fear like this. Alien fleets, once symbols of dominance, drifted helplessly through space. Engines stuttered, weapons failed, shields flickered, and entire command networks were paralyzed. Officers shouted, but their words reached no one. Fleets collided, missiles detonated harmlessly, and energy beams dissipated mid-flight. Chaos had replaced confidence. Panic had replaced pride. Every alien commander realized, with a cold terror, that they were facing a species beyond comprehension. Humanity had returned, not as myths or legends, but as an unstoppable force, patient, intelligent, and silent. Beneath Terra 9, human command centers hummed with quiet efficiency. Analysts recalculated enemy maneuvers in real time. Pilots executed invisible strikes across the void. Engineers adjusted orbital satellites and defenses with precision. Civilians monitored supply lines and communications, ensuring that every system remained operational. Every human acted as part of a single, unified organism. There was no panic. There was no hesitation. Every action had a purpose. Every failure of the enemy was anticipated and exploited. Humanity did not need to show itself to dominate. Its presence was felt in the failure of the enemy, in the collapse of fleets, in the terror of alien officers who could not comprehend the invisible hand guiding their defeat. The SOS signal pulsed again, no longer a plea, but a summons that had become a weapon. Alien fleets tried to respond, to recover, to strike, but every move played into human hands. Weapons misfired, engines failed, shields collapsed. Fleets drifted helplessly, communication lines broke, command networks faltered. Every action of the enemy reinforced the lesson that patience, intelligence, and preparation were more powerful than numbers, weapons, or pride. Humanity had not returned to negotiate, to bargain, or to plead. They had returned to reclaim the stars and teach the galaxy the cost of underestimating them. From orbit, human capital ships moved with ghost-like precision. Massive, agile, and perfectly concealed, they struck only where necessary. Key command vessels were neutralized. Reinforcements were intercepted. Pockets of organized resistance were dismantled without revealing the full extent of humanity's strength. The Deathworlders had transformed strategy into a weapon, turning patience, intelligence, and discipline into an instrument of dominance. Every fleet, every ship, every officer learned that human calculation was more lethal than the deadliest weapon in the galaxy. Alien officers tried to coordinate, to salvage pride and control, but it was useless. Every maneuver they attempted had been anticipated. Every strike had been predicted. Every attempt to regain order only tightened the invisible grip of human intelligence. Panic spread through fleets like wildfire. Even the bravest officers whispered of legends, stories of Deathworlders who had survived impossible worlds, endured the harshest conditions, and anticipated threats centuries in advance. Now, in the void, they understood the truth. Humanity had never been conquered. Humanity had survived, grown, and mastered the art of invisible warfare. The first strikes had been warnings. The second strikes had been lessons. And now, in this final phase, the crushing precision of humanity became undeniable. Alien fleets, scattered, immobilized, and terrified, realized that they were facing not just an enemy, but a force that could control the battlefield without revealing itself. Ships collided, engines failed, weapons misfired, and communication networks collapsed entirely. Every alien in the void understood a terrifying truth: humans were not extinct. Humans were patient. Humans were intelligent. Humans were unstoppable. The Council watched in silence. Their confidence, once absolute, had evaporated. Advisors who had dismissed the Deathworlders as extinct now whispered urgent warnings. Every calculation based on human weakness had been invalidated. Every fleet deployment, every strategy, every weapon system the galaxy had relied upon now lay in ruins. Humanity had returned, not to negotiate, but to dominate. The lesson of patience, intelligence, and preparation had been delivered. Fear spread faster than fleets could move, infecting every corner of the galaxy. In the hidden chambers of Terra 9, humans observed the enemy's despair. Civilians, pilots, engineers, analysts, all worked in seamless harmony. Every move, every strike, every adjustment was deliberate. Humanity did not rush. Humanity did not act recklessly. The first strikes had been warnings. The lessons had been taught. Now, the final reckoning was at hand. Every alien fleet immobilized, every weapon neutralized, every officer paralyzed with fear was proof that the Deathworlders had mastered the art of war beyond comprehension. As fleets fell into disorder, humans prepared the final phase of their strategy. Capital ships moved silently, unseen, striking at the command vessels. Alien leaders who had assumed victory now drifted helplessly, powerless to stop the inevitable. Every strike was precise, every maneuver calculated, every failure of the enemy anticipated. The galaxy watched in horror as humans, long believed extinct, revealed the devastating power of patience, intelligence, and discipline. The final reckoning unfolded without a sound, without chaos, without reckless destruction. It was a demonstration of mastery. Every alien fleet paralyzed, every officer terrified, every weapon neutralized was proof that humanity did not need to show its full strength to dominate. Silence, patience, and intelligence were more lethal than the deadliest arsenal. The galaxy had been humbled. The Deathworlders had returned not to negotiate, not to plead, but to reclaim the stars, teaching every species a lesson it would never forget. Underestimate humanity, and extinction is inevitable. The tide of the battle was irreversible. Alien fleets scattered, paralyzed, and broken. Human forces remained unseen, calculating, precise, and unyielding. Every failure, every panic-stricken officer, every immobilized warship reinforced a single truth across the galaxy. Humans were back, and nothing would ever stop them. The last reckoning was complete. The galaxy had been reminded of a truth it had long forgotten. Patience, intelligence, and discipline are the deadliest weapons in the universe, and humans wield them with absolute mastery. And still, the humans waited. They had not revealed their full strength. They had not struck recklessly. Every move was deliberate, every strike calculated, every outcome anticipated. The galaxy would never again underestimate the Deathworlders. The last reckoning had proven that humanity, patient and invisible, had returned to reclaim the stars, unbroken, unstoppable, and unmatched. The galaxy had changed forever. Alien fleets, once feared and unchallenged, drifted helplessly through the void. Engines sputtered, weapons failed, shields flickered, and command networks collapsed entirely. Every officer and soldier who had laughed at the legends of the Deathworlders now trembled in terror. The universe had underestimated humans for centuries, dismissing them as weak, primitive, or extinct. That mistake had been fatal. Humanity had returned, not to negotiate, not to bargain, but to reclaim the stars, and their victory was absolute. From the hidden command chambers of Terra 9, humans observed the aftermath with quiet precision. Pilots adjusted positions in orbit, satellites monitored every sector, engineers recalibrated orbital defenses, and civilians coordinated support for every system. There was no panic. There was no chaos. Every human was part of a single, unified organism, acting with flawless coordination. They had struck with patience, intelligence, and discipline. They had dominated without revealing their full strength. And the galaxy knew, without doubt, that humanity could not be stopped. The SOS signal, once dismissed as a faint plea for help, had become the instrument of their return. Alien fleets had responded, thinking victory was guaranteed. They had assumed numbers, technology, and arrogance would suffice. They had been wrong. Every fleet immobilized, every weapon neutralized, every command network disrupted was a testament to human mastery. The Deathworlders had turned strategy into an invisible weapon, precision into absolute dominance, and patience into unstoppable power. The galaxy had been humbled, and fear had spread like wildfire to every corner of known space. Above Terra 9, human capital ships moved like ghosts through the void. Massive, agile, and perfectly concealed, they had struck only when necessary, dismantling command vessels, intercepting reinforcements, and neutralizing the remaining pockets of resistance. Every alien fleet that attempted to fight back was anticipated, countered, and neutralized. Ships collided, engines failed, and weapons misfired as humans orchestrated every moment from hidden positions. The first strikes had been warnings. The lessons had been precise and deliberate. Now, the final victory was unfolding. The Council, once confident in its dominance, now faced humiliation. Advisors whispered in fear. Every fleet deployment, every tactical calculation based on human weakness had been rendered meaningless. Confidence had dissolved. Pride had shattered. Fear had replaced arrogance. Humanity had returned not to plead or negotiate, but to dominate, control, and reclaim the galaxy with patient, deliberate, and unstoppable precision. The galaxy had learned, painfully and permanently, the cost of underestimating humans. Even distant colonies and minor systems trembled in fear. Traders abandoned routes. Civilian populations watched broadcasts of fleets failing without explanation. Rumors spread of invisible humans who could control entire battles without appearing. Stories of Deathworlders who had survived impossible worlds, endured extinction, and mastered war became reality. Every corner of the galaxy understood the terrifying truth: humanity was not extinct. Humanity was patient. Humanity was intelligent. Humanity was unstoppable. And still, the humans waited. They did not rush. They did not strike recklessly. Every action was calculated, every move anticipated, every failure of the enemy exploited. The galaxy had seen their power in the first strikes, the lessons in the manipulation of fleets, and the crushing precision of the Deathworlders. But the true extent of humanity's dominance remained hidden, silent, and absolute. Every alien officer, every soldier, every fleet knew that resistance was futile. From the shadows of Terra 9, humans coordinated their final actions. Capital ships, satellites, and small vessels moved with perfect synchronicity. Supply lines, communications, and orbital defenses operated flawlessly. Civilians and soldiers alike were part of the same organism, executing a plan that had taken centuries to prepare. Humanity did not need to boast. They did not need to reveal themselves. Their presence was undeniable in every failure, every collapse, every panic-stricken officer who realized too late that they were facing a species beyond imagination. The alien fleets, scattered and paralyzed, finally began to understand the scale of what they faced. They had believed humans extinct. They had assumed weakness. They had relied on arrogance, numbers, and technology. Every assumption had been wrong. Humanity had returned not only to survive, but to dominate, orchestrate, and reclaim the stars. Patience had become their weapon. Intelligence had become their shield. Discipline had become their unstoppable force. And then, the final command was issued. The hidden humans, unseen and precise, neutralized the last pockets of resistance. Alien fleets that had hoped to recover were immobilized permanently. Command centers were disabled. Weapons systems turned against their operators. The galaxy had been defeated without the humans ever revealing their full strength. The Deathworlders had returned, not as legends, not as myths, but as the absolute masters of the universe. The stars themselves seemed to bow to their silent, unstoppable will. The galaxy would never forget this day. Every officer, every fleet, every species would remember the lesson learned in fear and awe: humans were not extinct. Humans were patient. Humans were intelligent. Humans were unstoppable. The Deathworlders had returned to reclaim the stars, and their victory was eternal. The universe had witnessed the rise of a species that could endure extinction, survive impossible worlds, and dominate entire fleets with invisible precision. And in the quiet chambers beneath Terra 9, humans observed the galaxy they had reclaimed. They did not celebrate loudly. They did not boast. Every action had been deliberate. Every strike had been precise. Humanity's return had been total, complete, and unstoppable. The galaxy had learned, finally and forever, that patience, intelligence, and discipline were more lethal than fleets, weapons, or arrogance. Humanity had returned. Humanity had conquered. And the victory would endure through the stars for all time. The eternal victory had been won.